You've finally stepped into your God-given purpose and you're starting to move forward. Out of nowhere, it seems like critics, doubters, and dream killers have come out of the woodwork like cockroaches. They attack your confidence level and try to inject doubt into every step you make. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to handle well-meaning and mean people speaking against your vision without getting derailed. And you'll know how to set healthy boundaries to protect not only your vision, but your heart as you move forward. Here's what nobody tells you about pursuing your purpose. Sometimes the people closest to you can become your biggest critics, but that says more about them than it does about you. Even Jesus faced critics and had to set boundaries. His own family thought he was out of his mind. Religious Pharisees constantly questioned him and doubted his authority. His hometown rejected him. Isn't this just the carpenter's son? And Peter even tried to talk Jesus out of going to the cross. But Jesus knew what God had called him to do. If Jesus faced critics, doubters, and naysayers, you will too. But he showed us how to handle them with wisdom and healthy boundaries. During my last wilderness season, my business and ministry were under construction, and I admit it didn't look good looking from the outside in, but God was working a purpose. I had a ministry colleague ask me about my business, and he said, "How much money has your business made in the last year?" Well, the answer wasn't what he wanted to hear, so he immediately told me, "It's time to shut it down." Now, this was someone very close to me and someone I listened to for advice from time to time. So those words hit hard, but when I prayed about it, God reassured me that I was to carry on no matter what things looked like. At the same time, within about a week, I had a neighbor ask me the same question. How much money has your business made in the last year? And when I told him, he got right in my face and said, "Stop fooling yourself. It's time to shut it down." Well, those words were hard to take, and I'm glad I didn't, because I knew what God was calling me to do, and that's why I'm sitting here today, moving forward in the business. Sometimes the enemy uses the people closest to us to try to get us to quit. Like Job's wife said to him after he'd been through some of the worst experiences of his life, she said, "Why don't you just curse God and die?" Thanks, Karen. Not what I needed to hear right now. Sometimes you can receive the same message, even the same words, as in my case with the two different people, that can look like it's a confirmation that God's speaking to you about a certain matter. In my case, it wasn't coincidence. It was spiritual warfare. But thank God for the shield of faith which quenches every fiery dart of the wicked one. Remember, God didn't give them the vision. He gave it to you. And when God gives you a vision, He gives you the grace to get through to the other side, no matter what the opposition, no matter what storms come against you, and no matter what words try to take you down. You will make it through if you continue to keep your eyes on Jesus and keep listening to what God is saying to you. You can't listen to everyone because not everyone is listening to God. Here's what I learned through those negative confrontations. Not everyone gets a vote about your God-given vision. In fact, most don't. When you step out, critics, doubters, and dream killers come to the surface because they're projecting their fears and beliefs onto you. Them saying, "I could never do that," becomes, "You shouldn't either." Sometimes your growth and forward movement challenges them to get unstuck and move out of their comfort zone. And people don't like that because it makes them uncomfortable. They don't understand your calling because God didn't call them to do what He's called you to do. You may be out in the middle of the ocean in faith, in the middle of God's will, while they're still in the kiddie pool telling you how to navigate the waters. It's not that they don't have any wisdom at all, although sometimes that may be the case. Sometimes they do have wisdom to offer us, but we have to filter those things through prayer. And let's face it, the enemy loves to use the people closest to you to try to discourage you as a last-ditch effort to get you to quit. Again, remember, when God gives you a vision, He gives it to you. It's not subject to a vote. But sometimes we let people talk us out of the vision God's called us to. That's when it's time to set healthy boundaries and move forward with those things God's called us to. But what if the criticism is coming from those people who you really love and respect and even get advice from on a regular basis? This is where healthy and holy boundaries come into play. Information boundaries can be extremely helpful because not everyone needs to know every detail of your vision. In fact, you should keep the details between you and God as long as possible as you're working these things out and getting clarity on the things God's calling you to do. Some parts are just between you and God. You can also set time boundaries by limiting draining conversations. Nehemiah said more than once, "I am doing a great work. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you?" He set strong boundaries for his time and his energy because he was focused on what God called him to do. Emotional boundaries are important to set because you don't want to take in another person's fear or doubt. I had a person recently say to me, "You don't know if your business will work or not." And I said, "No, it will." Between us, I didn't have to answer her. I could have just silently disagreed with what she was saying. Protect your momentum. Make a mental note of who calls you, who texts you, or who interrupts you the minute you sit down to work on that book or that project that God's called you to. There's something about that because there's divine interruptions, but there's also demonic interruptions. When you say, "I'm going to be working on my book between 9 and 11 each day," do the people around you respect the boundaries that you're setting? It's very telling if they do or they don't. Set your phone on airplane mode or focus mode so that you can get back to them later or maybe never. Here are a few responses that might be helpful to you as critics, doubters, and dream killers try to speak into your vision. "I appreciate your concern, but I'm confident about my decision. I've prayed about this and I have peace. I understand you see it differently. This isn't up for debate, but thanks for caring." I admit that one sounded a little snarky. Here's a couple of coaching questions for you. Who does not belong in your inner circle? And what boundaries do you need to set? Critics, doubters, and dream killers are often the voice of the enemy trying to keep you small. Your vision did not come from them. It came from God, and their approval is not required for your success. Surround yourself with people who see your value, people who see what God sees in you, and support you in the things He's calling you to. If you'd like help setting some boundaries with some of the people in your life, I have a limited number of calls available this week. Click on the link below and let's talk about how you can silence the voice of critics, doubters, and dream killers so you can move forward and fulfill your God-given purpose. Thanks for watching.